to order. It's May 20th, 2021, and we're holding this meeting via teleconference. As chairman of the Budget Review Committee, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I'm confirming that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. To access Zoom, please refer to the agenda or the city's website for the meeting link. To join by phone, dial 1-929-205-6099. The meeting ID is 849-4114-9715 and passcode 477492. The public may also view the meeting via channel 16. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting through public postings. Instructions have been provided on the City of Nashua's website at www.nashuanh.gov and publicly noticed at City Hall and the Nashua Public Library. If anyone has a problem accessing the meeting via phone or channel 16, please call 603-589-3329 and they will help you connect. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting via the methods mentioned above, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes will be taken during the meeting shall be done by a roll call. We're going to start the meeting tonight by taking a roll call attendance of the Budget Committee. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during the meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Alderman O'Brien, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman at Large, Shoshana Kelly.
I'm here. My children are in the room and I can hear everyone.
Alderman at Large Michael B. O'Brien Senior is present. I can hear the proceedings and I am alone. Alderman at Large Laurie Wiltshire.
I'm here, I'm alone, and I can hear everyone.
Alderman Ernest Jetty.
I'm here alone and I can hear the proceedings.
Alderman Jan Schmidt.
I'm present, alone, and can hear everyone.
Alderman at Large Ben Clemens.
I am here. I am by myself and I can hear everyone, and I apologize. I'm having a little bit of internet issues, so if I'm in and out, that's why, but hopefully right now it's stable. So.
And Alderman Richard Dowd, Chairman.
I'm present. I can hear the proceedings and I am alone.
All right, Mr. Chairman, you have all committee members of 7 are present. Also in attendance are Aldermans Lopez, Elizabeth Lou, and Alderman Clee. Is there any other alderman that I did not see and make mention? Okay. Also in attendance, Mr. Chairman, the Honorable Mayor James Donchis, Kim Kleiner, Administrative Services Director, Donna Graham, Legislative Affairs Manager, Steve Bolton, Esquire, Corporate Counsel, Sue Lovering, City Clerk, Doria Brown, Energy Manager, Bill Mansfield, Radio Systems Manager, Jennifer Deschalas, Risk Manager, Kelly Parkinson, Purchasing Manager, and also John Griffin, CFO.
Did we miss anyone? Pamela?
Pamela Davies raised her hand, Mr. Chairman.
And Cheryl Linder.
Who else, sir?
Cheryl Linder.
Sorry, Cheryl, I forgot you.
Okay. Found some pretty curtains
Okay.
for that room.
Excuse me, all members of the public should have their phones or computers on mute, or we will have to mute everyone. All right.
What was that?
The first item of business is public comment. Are there any members of the public that would like to have any comments on the agenda for tonight's budget meeting?
Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street.
Yes, go ahead.
I know we're going to review the legal budget, and I'm just putting it on the table that I don't support the position for the right to know coordinator in that budget. I don't think we got the service we as residents expected to get out of that position. They're not serving as the conduit that I thought they would to assist the public in gathering and obtaining information, particularly given this pandemic. And I know Alderman Dowd spoke about the other duties they do, but this individual was really hired to perform that right to know function. And I think it's been a pretty miserable failure for the city and for the public, worse for the public. And I don't support spending the money on that position. I don't think it should have been something that was put into the legal department. Thank you.
Any other members of the public? Seeing and hearing none. Communications,
There are none.
unfinished business,
There are none.
new business resolutions.
Before us this evening is R-21-142, relative to the adoption of the fiscal year 2022 proposed budget for the city of Nashua, general, enterprise, and special revenue funds. A public hearing will be scheduled for June 21st, 2021 at 7 p.m. at Nashua High School North Auditorium. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make the pending motion of final passage by roll call.
Okay, the motion is for pending final passage. We're going to take that resolution onto the table. At the end of the meeting, we will again table the motion until we're through all the budget review meetings. As we've done in the past few years, you can make a motion if you want to change something, but we tend to wait till we've gone through all the departments, and then we have a wrap-up session where you can make motions to change anything in the budget. I want to go through a few things. I'll try to put this out in writing, but we're under sort of a compressed schedule this year. As we're going through the different departments, I am going to ask for questions from the budget committee members first. And until all those questions are resolved, then I would ask for any of the other aldermen for questions. If there are questions that don't get resolved tonight, or they can't provide an answer tonight because they don't have the data with them, I want the questions to go to the department heads via Donna. And when the department heads respond, they will respond back to Donna, and all the aldermen will get a copy of the answers. On the departments presenting this evening and any that going forward, we don't need a long explanation of what that department does. I think all the aldermen should know basically what those departments do. You can give a short explanation, but a long explanation is already in the budget book, and everybody has a copy of the budget book. As far as salaries go, I've been through the budget in detail, and I would say most, if not all, of the salary lines are caused by union contracts or the unaffiliated salary scales. The only thing we'd like to know, unless somebody else wants to delve into something we should know the answer to, if the department added a person or lost a person, so that we know why that change took place. And again, we will try to wait for motions to change things till the wrap-up sessions. But I think that's pretty much what I wanted to cover this evening. If there are other things, I'll be putting out something before Monday. So the first item that we're going to discuss, it was general government, and the first department is 101, the mayor's office. Mayor, did you want to say something before we get started generally about the budget?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members of the committee. As usual, I wanted to plan to give you a short overview of the budget so we can at least place it into context. But before doing so, I would like to thank our city budget team, consisting principally of Mr. Griffin, the CFO, Ms. Kleiner, Administrative Services Director, Cheryl Lindner, Chief of Staff, and other people from all of the departments who worked on the budget. And while we are just touching on the presentation, Mr. Chair, you'll notice that, year by year, we've been trying to provide more text information in terms of describing what departments are doing and what goals and objectives they've accomplished in order to give you, members of the board, as well as the public, more insight into what each of the departments does and what they're focused on. Up to a few years ago, all we had was pages and pages of numbers, and we tried to make that more accessible a document so people would be more accountable for the dollars that are being spent. In terms of the budget, Mr. Chair, the overall budget is $290 million roughly. And as I said when I introduced it, I would want to emphasize at the beginning that if it were not for the state of New Hampshire and the actions that they've taken with respect to pushing costs on the cities and towns, this budget would result in a flat tax rate, maybe even down a little bit from this year to this coming fall. Now, as we've discussed before, unfortunately, the state is really slamming the cities and this city and all of the cities and towns with some major increases in costs and reduction in revenues, which result in a significant tax increase, which we're trying to offset by saving on the city side. But as we've detailed before, the city's pension budget, nothing to do with increased wages, the state has raised the bill by $4.4 million. And in terms of our school aid, right in the middle of a pandemic, city has reduced school aid over $7 million. When you put those two things together, paying for the state pension system, their new bill, and replacing those dollars that the state is cutting for our schools, that translates, just doing those things, translates to a 5.5% tax increase for the citizens of Hampshire imposed by the state of New Hampshire. So we've done some things to try to reduce that, Mr. Chairman, and offset what the state is doing to us. First of all, believe it or not, the federal government has helped come to the rescue. And this is maybe the reverse of what many people would think. You'd think the state government would be your friend and the federal government maybe is causing problems. But instead, the state is causing the problems and the federal government is coming through with the American Rescue Plan, which is going to enable us to, and the budget proposes, to replace 4.4 million of the lost revenue from the state with these federal dollars. So that helps a bit. But we also took actions at the local level to try to keep taxes down, to try to keep expenses increases to a minimum, given what the state has been doing. So what I did is I asked most of the departments to try to work towards a flat budget, a budget that is next year, the coming year, is the same as this year. Not necessarily easy to accomplish. But our city hall departments and other departments have worked very hard to to reach that goal. And I want to thank the many departments who have done that to help us keep the taxes down and keep the state's impact to an absolute minimum. The things that have been accomplished is at City Hall, and we joined in terms of creating this guideline. We put all the city hall departments together because that includes administrative services and potentially some others, because these are smaller departments, and we thought if we save money in one place, that is the way to just achieve an overall objective of a city hall zero. Now, actually, the city hall budget is down, surprisingly enough, by 2.7%. The largest factor there is the changes in the healthcare plan that we've discussed before, Mr. Chairman. The changes in the city HMO plan, which has been adopted by all city hall employees. That has helped us, plus some elimination of duplication, actually bring the budget in lower. Thank you to all of our departments for doing that. Thank you, Ms. Kleiner and the benefits people for working with our consultant to design an HMO plan that can save money both for city employees and for city taxpayers. Along the same lines, Mr. Chair, Public Works, their budget is down because of this healthcare change and because we eliminated some duplication. The Public Works budget is actually down 1.8%, and the library, for similar reasons, is down 1.9%. So this is a big help, and I want to thank those departments. I also gave the 0% to some of our outside departments, such as the fire and police departments. Now, we've been discussing budgets there for years, and I have been commenting for some years that they are building budgets that I don't think are sustainable. The fire department has proposed not the 0, but a 4% increase, double the rate of inflation. And the police department more like closer to 3. So in considering those requests, I know we're going to hear that they can't do without these dollars. I mean, they need 4%. They need whatever the police department has requested. Certainly, we all appreciate all of the work that our firefighters and police officers and the 2 commissions do for the city. But on the other hand, we have to consider the taxpayers and balance those needs. So rather than try to enforce the 0% as was accomplished by City Hall and some of the other departments, I propose a compromise in this budget. Not 0, certainly that would be from a financial point of view better. I proposed 1.7% for each of those departments, 1.7% equaling the cost of living. Now, this is a difficult budget year, and these are difficult decisions. Like always, when you're put under pressure like this by the state of New Hampshire, we have to make the decision, do we want to raise taxes, cut services? I mean, there's no easy way out of all this. Again, were it not for the Concord, we would be able to keep the tax rate flat with the budget I have proposed. So that gives you some overview on those departments. For the school department, I did take somewhat of a different approach because of the disruption that has occurred as a result of COVID-19, kids not being connected with some of the online learning and the like. So for them, I asked for a 1.5% increase. They came in, but for the healthcare issue, and that still hasn't been resolved for them, very close to that. So I just split the difference between their budget and mine, which I think is about $100,000. But you'll get to that when you get to the school department. So we are trying to be frugal in the ways that I've described, trying to help the hardworking taxpayers of Nashua, but we still, Mr. Chairman, are accomplishing a number of very positive goals with the budget that's before you. We are continuing our paving plan of action. Thank you to all the aldermen for your support in improving that major component of our infrastructure. Once this paving season is done, we will have paved over 120 miles of streets of the 300. And that's been a major goal, a major accomplishment. And we've crack sealed, a way of preserving streets for a while, another 70 miles or so. So there's been a lot of work done there, and we're continuing with that. We are continuing with our riverfront master plan. The lighting of the Cotton Transfer Bridge and the Riverwalk north of the river is going to be activated in the next week or so. I think maybe on Saturday night. So that's just the first stage, the rest being in design. And Mr. Chair, I know you're very familiar with the middle school improvement plan. We've already upgraded fairgrounds and brought a state-of-the-art technology as well as a solar-powered school. And now we're proceeding to Pennachuck, and we will ultimately be making replacing Elm Street with a new school in the south end, a more fiscally sound approach than trying, and a less expensive approach than trying to fix up Elm Street. But this will make our middle schools the best schools, we think, in the middle schools in the state of New Hampshire. And so we're moving forward with that. One final thing I wanted to mention, which is a new thing in the budget. In the capital improvement section, I did propose, in addition to the regular police department budget, the purchase of body cameras. This has been something that the police department has, over the past months, has suggested they think would be a good idea, an idea that they could support if we could find the money. So I proposed money for body cameras. The first year of that costs more than the subsequent years. It's kind of a pay-as-you-go plan, but the first year is something over $300,000. But that's within the capital improvements budget, which is basically flat from this current year. So that is something that I think will help our police department. But we see the good weather, we see the outdoor dining, we see at least some light on the end of the COVID-19 tunnel. So I think this budget is in line with overall city objectives and helps us signal that we have a strong and vibrant city. So that gives you an overview, Mr. Chair. Anybody has any questions or comments, of course, I'm here to answer those. Otherwise, for the mayor's budget, I will go on to Cheryl Lindner, and then I know Ms. Kleiner is here for the administrative services portions of the budget, as well as the various department heads. Again, thank you to all of them for working so hard to deliver a very, very tight budget. Bill Mansfield is here. I think he's on the call with Citywide Communications. Although it doesn't all appear in the budget, he's doing a very good job in renegotiating some of these cell tower contracts with the cell phone companies, as well as negotiating the terms of a new cell tower. So we'll be able to bring in more money that way through the cell tower. So you'll see his budget, and you can ask him about the additional revenue that we expect to be able to put in place sometime during the fiscal year. But with that, Mr. Chair, I think I wrap up, and unless you have questions, just turn it over to Ms. Lindner.
Before I see if there are any questions from the Budget Committee, I just would like to mention to people that the final tax rate is set by the state, and there are a lot of steps between now and then. We have an estimate right now, but there are things that change. Last year, we were fighting to keep the tax rate around 3%, and in the end, it ended up being less than 3% because of other things that change. So the numbers that were mentioned aren't final. Things could happen. So
now, yes, and I should be clear about that. The 5.5% factor from the state of New Hampshire, I mean, we have offset that to some degree. So again, this is an estimate, as you've just pointed out, Mr. Chair, but we if this budget passes as is, we're probably in the 3 to 4% range. And we're using a little bit of federal money and then our own budget actions to try to offset the body slam we're receiving from the state of New Hampshire.
So I talked to Mr. Griffin today. We're going to be working hand in hand over the next month to make sure all the numbers add up. All right, any questions for the mayor before we get started? Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. I was just basically a comment. I could not agree more so than what the mayor says. A lot of the troubles that come down from Concord. As many of my constituents and the people of Nashua know, I wear another hat. I am also a state rep. I would just like to say that the current, and there's 27 state reps from the city of Nashua. And out of the 27, there was a bipartisan effort on one of the bills that I wrote that was supposed to help alleviate some of the problems with the pension system, much that led into this $4.4 million deficit. Unfortunately, it fell on deaf ears up in Concord. They really do, the majority party, and I hate to do this, but you got to really call it out for what it really is. It fell even though it had backing from the New Hampshire Municipal Association. They were not interested in it. So, Mr. Mayor, again, I agree, but I want the people to know that the 27 delegates that come from Nashua, we're united with you and working strongly with this for the citizens of the city, trying to alleviate. But like all good things that sometimes happen in politics, I find the 27 bravely shoveled the sand against not a tide, but against a storm. And I'm very proud of them. I think they did a great job. And I just would like that the citizens know that it isn't the current, but they did do a good yeoman's job of trying to defend the needs of the city. So
Well,
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman O'Brien is correct. Our delegation has been strongly in favor of trying to help the city. Had Alderman O'Brien's bill passed, and that had to do with pensions. There've been some other bills concerning the school aid supported by our delegation. Had these bills passed, the situation would be different than what it is. I think Alderman O'Brien's bill failed on the floor by 6 or 8 votes after, a very determined effort. The majority just seems to want to look the other way on this. I'd like to make it clear that also that we're not the only city involved here. I mean, the mayors of 13 cities, we've written to the governor, the Senate president, the Senate finance, whatever, and trying to get them to help all of the cities and towns. And like Alderman O'Brien, we have not really received any kind of hearing. In fact, no answer to those letters at all. Even though we represent together, 40% of the state's population or so.
Okay, I have Shoshana, Alderwoman Kelly.
Thank you, Alderman Dowd. I just wanted to comment and then ask a quick question to the mayor. So obviously, thank you for the hard work. It's been an interesting year for everybody. And I know putting this budget together was a task for you and your staff and, everyone really in the city here. My question is around the school budget. So I think when you first presented it to us at Board of Aldermen and tonight, you said, the school's been up against a lot of things this year, including, loss of learning and lots of other things that are happening. But then I think I understood it that you're saying that they should be at the lowest of all big three. Is that right? In terms of what you want them to come in at?
No, if you look, I mean, it's the school budget is a little more involved because the issue of what health plan they will have next fiscal year is not resolved. But if you sort of leave that aside, their budget is up about 1.7%. And so they are not the lowest of the departments. I propose for them about the same as for fire and police. And if you total their budget, it's more, but that doesn't include the health plan. So, there's teacher negotiations going on. So there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to the school budget. I would like to comment, that of course the city is, we're under a lot of financial pressure. Two other comments. Property taxes in New Hampshire are high as a result of all these things being done by the state. And this is just 1 year. It's like we get detailed year by year the stuff that they've pushed onto the property taxpayers. But Nashua does have the second lowest taxes of any city in New Hampshire. The only lower one is Portsmouth. That really is because of the unbelievably high real estate values there. They actually probably pay higher taxes because the houses are worth so much. But it's compared with all the other cities, we're the lowest other than Portsmouth. That's number one. Number two, there are teacher negotiations going on. I mean, one thing that we have to think about is that our teachers relative to other teachers are underpaid. If you look at the list of average salaries that the Department of Education puts out, we are around the 61st in line. There are 59 or 60 other school districts that pay on average teachers more than Nashua, some considerably more. Now, again, we have to consider what can be afforded, but I think we have to keep this in mind that if we want our school, if we want an excellent education for every student in every school, in the long term, we need the best teachers we can get. And to do that, I mean, our teachers have been doing a great job in the middle of the pandemic with all of the online learning. I just talked to a parent today who's, was talking about how his or her child's teacher is teaching at the same time, in person and online with a mixed group of students, some online. Very difficult job. Our teachers have been working hard, but relative to other teachers, they're not that well paid. And I think we have to take that into consideration in the years ahead.
All set? Alderwoman Kelly?
Yes, thank you.
Is there anyone else in the Budget Committee that has a question for the mayor? Alderman Jettie?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor, you mentioned the American Rescue Plan. I think I heard you say that you're looking to get $4 million from the American Rescue Plan, the federal money. I think I read somewhere that there's a condition on that it can't be used to lower the tax rate. So, can you elaborate on that?
Yes, definitely.
How's that going to work on our budget?
Well, first of all, but a clearly allowable use is the replacement of lost revenue. And we're clearly losing money from the state of New Hampshire. And of course, it won't result in a reduction in taxes because our tax rate as a result of the other lost revenue from the state and the pension bill is going to go up. So this is definitely an allowable use. If we simplified an example and the city had, a $20 tax rate, well, we're going to use this to bring it down to 19, to 18. And that were the only factor involved, that would not be, allowed. But clearly lost revenue, replacement of lost revenue is one of the principal uses approved by the American, both in the law and in the regulations.
Thank you.
All set, Alderman Jettie?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Any other Budget Committee members or other aldermen that would like to ask a question of the mayor? Seeing and hearing none. Mayor, I'll set to turn it over to your able assistant, Ms. Linder.
Yes, I am. I expect you to really grill her, so,
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me the time to talk to you tonight and explain our budget for fiscal year 22. My name's Cheryl Linder. I'm Mayor Donchis' Chief of Staff. I just want to take a brief minute to just explain the function of the mayor's office. So mayor's office facilitates interactions between constituents in the city, works with other departments on projects and initiatives, communicates and engages with the public, and creates a welcoming atmosphere within the city and the city government. Our budget that we presented for fiscal year 22 has no staffing changes. There is an increase from fiscal year 21 by $4,160. And that is due to the unaffiliated wage structure within the city. Other than that, we really don't have many other line items in our budget. It's mostly just the staffing. So at that point, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have for me on anything for our department.
Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
And by the way, the appropriations are on page 54. Does anyone from the Budget Committee have a question on the mayor's budget? Seeing none. Any other aldermen? None? Thank you very much, Cheryl.
You're very welcome. Thank you. It's nice to see you all again.
All right, the next budget to discuss is civic and community activities, other services outside agencies, equipment, Department 109. Appropriations are on page 69. And who'll be presenting? No one? Mayor, did you have anybody that?
The community projects are on, the CFO can refresh my recollection as to what page those are on.
69.
So those, went to the, these went to the those went to the
Okay.
Citizens Advisory Committee, as they always
Right.
do. So
Yeah.
the overall budget for this is the money that goes to the social service agencies. But that's principally what the money is. And we, for many years now, have been asking the Citizens Advisory Committee, we used to have a different name for it, but the Citizens Advisory Committee to review social service requests and then make recommendations so that we have an informed group of decisions regarding how the money should be allocated. The amount of money is basically flat from current year, the total amount of money. And you can see on page 69 and 70, the allocations that the Citizens Advisory Committee have made. I always just rely on them. This was something we instituted when I was mayor before. I always rely on them to have made the right judgments rather than to second guess everything. They've spent time talking with every one of the social service agencies. And so what you see are the allocations that of the dollars that I made available, the allocations that the Citizens Advisory Committee under the leadership of Jason Tulerski has recommended.
Okay, so yeah, the list is on page 69 and 70. If anybody has questions, they can send them in through Donna and we'll get answers. But one thing I will mention that there are two establishments in Nashua that provide hundreds of thousands of dollars to many of these agencies and other groups. So that it keeps us from having to feel bad about not being able to provide all the money we should be providing to those groups. So if you see some of these agencies that are now gone to zero, it's because they are receiving funds from another venue. All right.
And the allocations vary year by year depending on what's proposed. Some agencies go up and others down, but overall, the total that we are dedicating to this purpose is about the same.
Right. Any, just in case, are there any questions that we can answer right now? Alderman Jettie?
I just for clarification, is this this money that's listed in this budget, is this actual City of Nashua tax money? Or is this money that comes from the federal government that just passes through us? I'm thinking of community development block grant money. Is that in addition to this?
The money that you see on page 69 and 70 is city money. And, you know, that is devoted to this purpose. The community development block grant money, which, you know, also in part is dedicated to helping some of the social service agencies, that of course is really, there's a proposal, but that goes through the Human Affairs Committee. And you see that that money elsewhere in the budget.
All said, Alderman Jettie?
Yes, thank you.
Yep. If there are no further questions, the next department that we will discuss is the Board of Aldermen. Donna?
Hi.
Oh, and that's
Good
on
evening.
page 55.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present my budget tonight. My name is Donna Graham, and I'm the Legislative Affairs Manager to the Board of Aldermen. Our budget is level funded with no increases, and I have no change in staffing. There's one full-time employee and a part-time employee. And President Wilshire and I are pleased to submit our budget to you, which is within the mayor's guidelines of level funding. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Any questions for Donna? Any of the Budget Committee? No? Any aldermen? No?
I have a question. Alderman Lopez?
Is that the hiker, Tom Lopez?
Yes, I've gotten off the bus safely and I'm standing in an alleyway. There's nobody around me.
All right. What's your question?
So my question is it legally possible if some of the Board of Aldermen chose for them to give back?
Give back their salaries? I guess I'd leave that question up to Attorney Bolton.
Second question would be, would it make a difference overall to the tax rate?
Based on the amount of money we're talking about, it probably wouldn't. I hope you didn't fall off something.
No, I can hear you. I just feel like it's worth asking the question, exploring what the impact would be.
Anyone can make a charitable donation to the city. And in fact, specify how they wish their contribution to be spent. The Board of Aldermen would then have to accept it, spend it, make an appropriation of those funds. I'm hearing quite a bit of static. I think you could hear me.
I can
Yeah,
hear.
go
Sorry, I'll
mute,
turn my mic off.
And if the conditions desired by the donor were too rigorous, the Board of Aldermen could choose not to accept the donation. So a donation equal to the amount of the aldermanic compensation by a sitting alderman. As I said, a donation by anybody in any amount is possible. If someone wishes to donate $10 million, that would be enough to show up on the tax rate. Substantially less than that would have a corresponding less impact.
Okay, in my history, we've had one person in 10 years, and you have to sort of take the money and then donate it back because the money is by legislation. And the only alderman that I know that did that provided his funding to one of the schools because he was fairly well off. And I think it was to the school, I forget what they call them now. But they're-
PTOs.
PTOs, yes, thank you. So that's possible, but again, from what we get paid, which hardly doesn't even cover our expenses, certainly wouldn't make a big dent in the tax rate. Alderwoman,
Can I just follow up?
follow up?
Yeah, because I know it's not a significant amount towards the tax budget individually. And I know that as compensation for the amount of time I put in, approximately 30 hours a week for me, it's very minimal. And I'm not suggesting that other aldermen should feel burdened to do this, but I was actually asking about pre-tax before it is paid to us. Also legislation that makes their compensation for this year, or is it too late for us?
Alderman Lopez, we can hardly hear you. I would suggest perhaps you put that question in writing and send it through Donna so that it can be answered by Mr. Griffin.
Okay, will do.
All right. Alderwoman Lou?
Thank you. I noticed that the benefits here went up sixfold. Is that going to be typical of the departments this year?
Mr. Griffin? Pretty sure that's that impact the state sent down to us.
Was it the benefits question, Mr. Chairman, or was it the sum of the line? Was it specific to benefits to include health and dental, or is it total?
Would you like me to answer that question?
Yes.
52,300 benefits went from 5 to 25, or to 28.
I'm sorry, are we on the Board of Aldermen, or are we on?
We're on the Board of Aldermen. That's on page 55. I don't see those numbers.
Well, I was looking at last year versus this year. This is what I was looking at.
Well, that's on page 55. They have the original 2021 budget, the available 2021 budget, what's been spent to date and what's projected this year. And on the benefits line, it looks like it's down about $2,000.
I'm wrong. Thank you for clarifying that for me. I'm all set.
No problem. Anyone else? Question on the Board of Aldermen budget? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to the legal department. Attorney Bolton, are you going to? Oh, and that's on page 58.
Thank you. I think everyone's aware we added another lawyer to primarily deal with right to know issues. And $100,000 was transferred in the middle of the last fiscal year. So that accounts for some of the increase in the salary and wages area. Other than that, it's the normal increase provided for in the compensation plan for unaffiliated employees. Benefits are what they are. That's calculated not by me, but by the human resources and financial departments. After that, the small increase in other lines, for example, dues and memberships. We're paying the bar dues, the Bar Association dues for 4 lawyers now rather than 3. The training and certifications, we now have 4 lawyers instead of 3 required to take continuing legal education courses. to the tune of 12 hours a year. Other than that, I tried to reflect on how much these small areas we expended during the course of the last fiscal year, things like recording fees, postage, litigation expenses. Some of those went up somewhat, others we kept level. Not an awful lot of money, but if you've got major litigation with serious issues, with potential serious dollars involved, sometimes you've got to spend a little money to take a deposition or to seek expert help. And that's what some of these lines involve. We've actually had more in the way of filing and recording fees recently. We're getting involved in more real estate dealings where we're providing property and making sales or exchanges of property. And that has some small expense for the recording fees and so forth. So that's reflected to a small extent.
Any questions for legal? Alderman O'Brien, then Alderman Jettie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney Bolton, you mentioned that, and I do remember we transfer funds over to hire the new position. And I just want to see, is that position really doing what we intended? Is it freeing up your office that for the other attorneys whose workload has been, that was ignored, that they're capable of doing what is expected of them and handling the difference? So basically, in a nutshell, what we're asking, the citizens getting the bang for the buck for this new position?
Absolutely. No one is sitting around with no work to do. Jesse, the lawyer we hired to fill that position, Jesse Newman, is very conscientious, very dedicated. He's working extremely hard and has taken a considerable amount of the burden that would otherwise Attorney Leonard or Attorney Clerk or myself would have to deal with. That has freed up those others of us to work on other projects, some of them quite major, the School Street project, the Bronstein redevelopment project. We just went through and closed approximately a week ago an exchange of lots with Public Service of New Hampshire over at the Mill Yard. We're still working on and hope to get it closed next month, the sale of the Burke Street property. Attorney Leonard has worked very hard on all of those issues, along with the Economic Development Office. Similarly, she was responsible for most of the legal work in connection with the Performing Arts Center, which was very substantial. You all know that Dory Clark is writing most of the legislation that you folks deal with on a regular basis. And she's constantly working on those issues. She also is very involved in some of the human resource related matters, helping establish policies for City Hall and well, all of our employees. But over the last year, what we've required of City Hall employees in terms of dealing with the pandemic, Dory's been our liaison to the task force involved with that. I deal mostly with litigation matters and general overview of the office. All four lawyers, and as often as not, the two legal assistants get together regularly and discuss what are our pending issues, what are our plans to deal with them, and allocate our time accordingly so that we're providing the best quality legal services that we can. If we did not have the fourth lawyer, it would take considerable time away from what are frankly more important tasks. Citizens who are requesting detailed and complicated array of documents, they would have to wait much longer for all those documents to be retrieved, analyzed, perhaps redacted, and provided to them. So as far as I'm concerned, we have gotten very good service, better than we could have reasonably hoped for when we added the additional attorney right-to-know coordinator position.
Thank
One
you,
additional
Counselor.
thing is the middle school projects. Attorney Leonard has done an extensive amount of work on the middle school project that was aided quite well by Attorney Newman. Follow-up, Alderman O'Brien?
No, thank you, Counselor, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I believe I had Alderman Jettie.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Attorney Bolton, I know from my experience in the past, litigation is can be very expensive. And I see nothing here regarding outside counsel. Have we not had the need to hire outside counsel, and do you not anticipate that need in the coming year?
The school department regularly uses outside counsel for certain matters. And the risk department, risk and insurance department, on cases that are covered by our insurance fund and our umbrella policy, the umbrella carrier often requires that we hire people, other lawyers with particular expertise in certain subject matters. So those come out of other budgets. I'm often involved in discussions and consideration of possible settlements, possible approaches, possible strategic matters. So I consult on those even when I'm not directly handling the case. But as I say, those come out of other budgets, not the legal department.
Okay, could I follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Follow up? Sure.
Yeah, so you mentioned settlements. That's another question I had. So I've heard that the city has been involved in litigation or potential litigation, claims of various kinds, where settlements have been agreed upon. I don't see anything here. Are those settlements in some other budget somewhere else?
Well, it depends on what they are. For example, the ones I'm most involved in concern tax abatement appeals. So if a taxpayer contends that their property is disproportionately higher assessed than the general run of properties in the community, they first apply to the Board of Assessors for an abatement. If they are dissatisfied with the decision of the Board of Assessors, the taxpayer may choose to file an appeal either in the Superior Court or at the Board of Tax and Land Appeals, which sits in Concord. Sometimes we were able to come to an agreement that is satisfactory to the taxpayer, and we don't have to try those cases. Those settlements are approved or not by the Board of Assessors, and the refunds, if any, are paid out of what's called the overlay, which is an account that is set aside just for that purpose, for the purpose of paying refunds to taxpayers who have been overassessed. In other circumstances, if it's a workers' compensation claim, there's a trust fund that's managed by the risk department, and the payment might come out of that fund. Similarly, with other matters where we're self-insured, ordinary general liability, negligence case, someone falls and hurts themselves getting on or off a city bus, or some city vehicle is the driver is somehow negligent or alleged to be negligent in the operation of the city vehicle, and someone is injured thereby. That comes out of those funds managed by risk. In those cases, it's the finance committee that approves the settlement. And most of those would be reviewed by the finance committee in the first instance in non-public session. So yeah, those things are not in this budget.
All
Thank
set,
you.
Alderman Jettie?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Any other aldermen with questions for legal? Seeing none, thank you, Attorney Bolton. Now we'll go to Department 107, City Clerk's Office, which is on page 63. Ms.
Good
Lovering?
evening. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Budget Review Committee. For the record, my name is Sue Lovering, and I'm the city clerk, and I am pleased to be before you this evening with presenting my budget. You will notice that there is a reduction in my bottom line, a little over $75,000, $75,931 to be exact. And this is the result of having only one election this year as opposed to the 3. Regarding the positions, we have eliminated the department coordinator position. That position has been vacant since a year ago, March. Other than that, all line items remain flat. We are zero increased, zero level budgeting, except for a small increase in other contracted services. About $2,120 has been added to cover the inauguration that we will be having in January. And that's a quick overview, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for the city clerk on her budget? Seeing none. Only thing I spotted, it must have been somewhere else, was the dog licenses are way down. We probably can cover that one. I don't know where it was in the.
Are you looking in the revenue, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, in the revenue. But it's quite significant from 19 and 20, or 20 and 21.
Usually we have we come to the Board of Aldermen with a civil forfeiture for those that do not license. And while our offices were closed and during the pandemic, many of the dog owners and veterinarians actually were also closed, and they were unable to have their rabies and weren't able to make arrangements, or were fearful to come out or drop checks off in the back and did not register. Our licensing season is actually in April. Those numbers are quite high up now. And we have seen people come current with not paying last year's when registering this year's.
Okay, just thought that question might come up later, so I thought we'd get it answered now. Thank you very much. Any other questions for the city clerk? Thank you, Ms. Lovering.
Thank you.
All right, next is energy management. It's on page 68, it's Department 108. Is Ms. Brown?
Yep, I'm right here. Hi, I'm Dory Brown. I'm the energy manager for the city of Nashua. There isn't much change to my budget except in the step changes. Other than that, it is pretty much the same from last year.
Questions for energy management? Just have a couple. You consulting services, we didn't look like we didn't spend anything this year, but
Yes.
expect to spend it next year. Okay.
So we expect to roll that over to next year. We're going to use it for community power to give to the Community Power Coalition, which is a joint power agreement that we voted, or that you voted to join last Board of Aldermen session. So I'm hoping to use that for consulting services so we have the best aggregation plan possible.
Okay, the only other question I had is, since I'm really familiar with the amount of solar panels on top of the Fairgrounds Middle School, we have them on several buildings now. Do we have any idea how much that's saving the city, or was going to save us in 22?
So I actually did the city's cost. I have to look it up on my computer really fast.
I mean, if you don't have that right now, you can send it to us, but
Yeah, I can definitely
just
send
thought that people would like to have that, because we're also going to be putting solar panels on top of Pennachuck and
Yes.
the new middle school. So we will hopefully have significant savings from the solar work that we're doing. All right. Any other questions for Ms. Brown? No? All right. Thank you very much. The next is Citywide Communications, page 162. Mr. Mansfield.
How are you, sir?
Pretty good. I see your new tower all the time.
I'm sure you do.
So, want to fill us in
Yes.
on your budget?
Okay, my name is Bill Mansfield. I want to thank you all this evening for having me respond to my budget proposal. This year's budget is has no increase to it. It's just as as a refresher. So the communications division is basically there's two of us that manage a 10-channel trunked radio system that's utilized by everybody in the city. So when I say everybody in the city, I'm talking about all city entities, police, fire, all the DPW departments and divisions. Anybody in the city that has a radio, pretty much it comes from our division. We maintain these radios. We maintain a 3-site infrastructure of antennas and building facilities. We also have 2 dispatch sites, one at fire, one at police, and there's also infrastructure equipment in fire and police as well. The budget that you have before you tonight is to basically manage all the equipment that's out there. It provides repairs, it provides upgrades, it provides any software, any additional equipment that we need. It replaces batteries that we have. There are approximately 1,500 portable and mobile radios out there. There's approximately 1,000 portable radios. Each of these requires batteries. The time frame for these batteries, they last about 3 years. So that money is that to replace these batteries and other equipment for police and fire comes out of this budget. We're also responsible for the installation of all mobile radios into new vehicles, removing radios out of the old vehicles. And we hire a company to come in and do these installations, and that comes out of this budget as well. This year, we've, like I said, I have level funding on this budget. We did quite a few projects this year. The largest one is the one that Alderman Dowd was referring to, which is removing all of the antenna equipment off the water tank up on Kessler Farm Drive, constructing a tower, and putting the antenna equipment onto that particular tower. Now there is no water tank there, so Alderman Dowd now has a wonderful view of the tower. But they are constructing a new water tank up at that location at this point in time. We also installed what they call a bi-directional amplifier into the Southern New Hampshire Med Center. This provided, we had serious coverage issues, radio coverage issues for fire and police and the ambulance companies in the emergency department area because of the fact that of the lead walls in there. So we installed a antenna system in there to provide better radio communications coverage. We completed the Manchester Airport Emergency Operations Center. Basically, it's a backup radio communications center. That is complete at this point in time. We recently had an upgrade of our entire radio system that took about a month to do, where we upgraded to the Motorola's most recent software and hardware. We're now at 20.20.1 for that system upgrade. We still continue to work on interoperability in the state, where we continue to work with the state police as well as local departments. We work with the SWAT teams within the state to make sure that we're interoperable with each other with the different communications that are out there. Our radio system is an 800 megahertz radio system. The only other entity in the state that has an 800 megahertz system is Manchester. Every other city and town in the state operates on VHF radio communications. These two different radio communications do not talk to each other. So we have to come up with solutions to be able to interoperate and have communications with all these entities. There's a proposal that's coming up, having discussions right now, and with the town of Merrimack. Town of Merrimack operates on VHF radio communications. Their communications are subpar, to say the least. They have asked if they could join our radio system and come onto our radio system. That's been run through the radio committee as well as the mayor, where it's been tentatively approved for us to continue speaking with them. Merrimack is looking for us to basically just provide them with radio communications. They're going to purchase all their own radios, all their own equipment. We would have to program them, which is not that major of a task. But they did testing in the town, and I believe they have 11 sites with their VHF system. And with our system, we cover better in building. We have better in building coverage in the town of Merrimack than what the town of Merrimack does with their 11 sites with VHF. So that is the main reason why they're looking to do this. There would be a fee that we would charge. Again, we'd be negotiating that for them to be on our system. It would be a minimal charge. I've looked at contracts throughout the US with an organization I belong to. Most entities do not charge fees, mainly because it's a state-run system. But because we're a community, a smaller community, there are some that charge like I said, a minimal fee. So we'll be looking at doing that. I actually have a meeting with the Merrimack Town Council next week to discuss this further and to find out the direction that they want to go in with this particular proposal. Also this year, I put into the capital improvements for replacing all police and fire radios within the city. When I say police and fire radios, I'm talking specifically about the portable radios. These radios have been in service for 8 to 9 years. At the end of last year, December 31st of 2020, the fire department, all the fire department radios, we were notified by Motorola that if they were sent out for repair, they would no longer comply with what they call factory mutual, I'm trying to think of the term, but basically it makes the radios intrinsically safe. So if a firefighter goes into a building and the building has gases or chemicals, the radio will not arc and cause an explosion. So Motorola stopped certifying these radios as being FM certified at the end of the year because they've transitioned over to a new, it's not just Motorola, all radio vendors have transitioned over to the new policy, which is going with United, I'm trying to think of that term, it's UL, being UL listed. So we're looking at replacing all those radios because they are, again, they're not repairable and they can no longer be certified as FM radios. Also with the police radios at the end of this year, those radios will no longer be able to be repaired because they're at their end of their life. So we've been looking to replace those radios and hopefully work with other public safety entities to come up with some type of public safety capital improvements budget to enhance other areas like providing extra redundant fiber within the city and enhancing the fire department's communications within the fire departments themselves. So I'm sure that's going to come up for discussion when their budget is presented. But all in all, with the pensions and benefits and the salary increases, we had to reduce our budget by $10,000 to meet the mayor's recommended 0% increase. Had to cut many different areas within the budget, mainly again equipment maintenance, repairs, as well as communications equipment itself. So if we are able to purchase those new radios this year, it would actually not be, it would not harm us to have that $2,000 cut out of the communications equipment budget line item. But are there any questions? I know that was a mouthful. I'm trying to move along because I know you have a busy night.
Are there any questions for Citywide Communications? Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mansfield, I agree with you that the radios are old. Those radios are the ones I used to use. But are there federal granting available for this particular upgrade, or are you actively seeking federal granting with this change in the FM to UL for the intrinsic value of the radio?
So we have looked at that. At this point in time, there's no grant funding available for this. One of the other issues that's coming up is that there's also been a new NFPA standard. I believe it's, I'm trying to think of the number. There's so many numbers out there. There's a new NFPA standard for fire radios. There isn't a manufacturer that makes a fire radio that can meet this standard. So we continue to look at different ways to get funding to hopefully help us to purchase these radios when they become available.
Follow up, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Mansfield. Why don't I look surprised when you mention the NFPA inventing something that nobody has yet, but we'll leave that one alone. Do these radios, will they have, when we get the upgrades, can we recoup any money to, let's say, into a department or a division or something where the intrinsic value may not be as critical, or these older radios will become a liability and therefore cannot be repurposed?
So that if we do replace these radios, the radios that will be taken out of service will be distributed to other entities, meaning any public works, the health department. We've already distributed some to some other. We distributed some to the school department. There'll be more going to them. So there is a purpose that we can utilize these radios for, that we're not going to throw them out. The radios that all these non-public safety entities have today, those radios have been non-repairable for the last 6 years because they are much older radios. So whenever a radio comes in, I basically take a radio and try to piece the parts together to get the radio back to them so they can utilize it. By utilizing the radios that would come out of police and fire, the radios would still be able to be utilized, I would have enough cache of radios that if there was one that was severely broken, we could either fix it with parts that we have, or we would just replace it with another radio that we have, another spare radio that we have. So they are still going to be viable radios for the rest of the city.
All set,
Thank you.
Alderman O'Brien?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for taking my question. I'm sure everybody's looking forward, other divisions to receiving a lime green radio, but thank you.
Any other questions for Citywide Communications? I just have a couple. You're reducing your monies available for maintenance and repairs significantly. Is there a potential issue there where you might have to come back to the well?
I hope not. It depends on what happens with the radio equipment. So I'm managing it today with the amount of money that we currently have. If we have to, we'll have to just cut other things out to fill in that gap. So I'm hoping that that's not going to be an issue. I guess I hate to say it, but I'm kind of counting on radios being replaced this year so that that budget is not hit as badly.
Okay. The other question I have is we're getting 2 new pumper trucks and a fire department. I'll call it a pickup truck, but it's got a lot more in it. I assume the radios for that come out of the bond or the SURF monies, and so the acquisition is covered. What about the installation? Do you do that, or is that done outside?
So the radios that go in those vehicles come out of vehicles that they're replacing. So we don't purchase any new radios for those. We basically recycle the mobile radios, take them out of one vehicle, put them in another vehicle.
But
those say that again.
Do you do the swapping?
So personally, we will remove the radio, Citywide Communications, because of the liability with vehicles. We pass that on to a company. There's a company called Two-Way Communications. That's our backup radio people. So if we had an issue with the radio system, we would call them in. We utilize their services to install radios and pass the liability of drilling holes in fire trucks, ceilings, and pickup trucks to them because they're more familiar with the airbags. That's the biggest problem. We're not familiar with all that stuff, so we allow them to do that. It's about $600 per radio to install.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Mansfield. I don't think there are any other questions. Next, the department is 106, Administrative Services on page 89.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Budget Committee. Kim Kleiner, Administrative Services Director. And I am here tonight with about half of the division. We have IT, assessing, and GIS that will be before you next Wednesday evening. Just to give you a little overview of the Administrative Services Division budget as a whole, less the benefits and risk internal service funds, which serve the city and reside by oversight under the Administrative Services Division. The division is down 3.6% from fiscal 21, or approximately $191,000, not including fringe benefits. So as Mayor Donchis noted, overall, we do have an increase to our pension costs. And we did experience an additional about $144,000 in benefits cost combined as a division. To go through Department 106, the Administrative Services Department, we have a decrease to wages. That amount is results as a total combined of an increase. There's 3 employees, myself, the administrative assistant, and half of the grant writer salary. All of us are unaffiliated employees. So with the unaffiliated increases and a reduction of 15% of my salary, which is now being charged to the benefits fund for oversight of that fund, you see a net reduction of a little over $6,800. Interestingly enough, there's a new line to the Administrative Services Department budget. That's vehicle repairs and maintenance for an increase of $5,000. We did not get cars in my department. Those are the cars that were negotiated into the UAW contract for UAW employees, and we are managing that process. Those 4 vehicles are vehicles that have been traded to us from the Nashua Police Department. Instead of using them for trade-ins on their new police cruisers, they gave them to us. We negotiated them as part of the UAW contract, and they'll be used by UAW employees. We haven't received the cars of yet. We expect to receive them by the end of the fiscal year. There is a small increase in telephone cellular charges and a small decrease in mileage. Last year, when we came before you, there were some questions regarding grants. The city is very blessed to have Pamela Davies with us. We share Pamela with the school department, and I asked her if she would attend this evening and give you an overall of the extensive work that she has done on behalf of the schools and the city.
Thank you, Kim. Hello, everyone. I'm Pamela Davies. I am both the city and the schools grant writer. And I think I'm the only shared employee between both the schools and the city. And it kind of reminds me of I used to live in a house that was owned by that and the house next door were owned by twins, and there was a shared 2-car garage, and we always used to joke about who owns the center wall of the 2-car garage. And it's kind of like, that's my Wednesday lunchtime. Like, who do I work for during lunch on Wednesday? Anyway, so I share my time between both the city and the schools. And what I mainly do is I monitor available funding, and I try to match it with priorities that both sides have communicated to me. And I mean, I could treat the job like going after any available funding that there is, but what I try to do is to meet identified needs or try to bring down funds that we may already be spending. Because we don't want to end up with grants that we don't really need and just fund something just because we could. Let's see, I also then help the departments or whoever's gotten the grant figure out how to spend those funds correctly, make sure that we're reporting correctly. All those things fall to me. Other things I do are I try to liaise with nonprofits in the city and make them aware of opportunities that we can't get as a municipality or a school district, and just kind of improve partnerships throughout the city. For example, we worked with the United Way this year, and the city didn't, and the schools didn't receive this grant directly, but I wrote a grant through the United Way where we got $440,000 worth of kindergarten readiness programming for the region, which was great, which was something we couldn't have done on our own. And it was great to work with them. Let's see, since I started in the end of 2019, I brought in, let's see, I wrote it down, a total of $1,228,000 for the city and $146,956 for the schools, not counting the United Way grant, which is delightful. And so hopefully I'll continue to be that successful as we move forward. And if you have any questions about specific grants or things that I do, please let me know.
Any questions for the grant writer? None? Thank you very much. Okay. Any questions for Ms. Kleiner at this point? Seeing none. Move on to the Department 110, Arlington Street Community Center, page 93.
Hi, good evening. My name is Megan Karen. I am the director of the Arlington Street Community Center. Thank you for giving me the time to review our budget tonight. I believe appropriations are on page 93. As you may know, things at the center are a little different. Since we couldn't offer programs, classes, or services in person, we found a few different solutions in order to serve our community in what is a growing time of need. So given these challenges, we were still able to serve over 440 community members. One of the solutions was we added a Zoom room mobile kit to the dance studio, which allowed us to program virtually. And in the future, we can continue to offer a hybrid model. So for example, folks who maybe they don't have transportation to the center or that time frame doesn't work for them, they would be able to tune in virtually and participate in that class via Zoom. We also began offering to-go activity kits. These really kind of ran the gamut, ranging from a family paint night to STEM programs in collaboration with UNH Extension Program. And these were a great success. We started these last summer and the community responded very positively to them. We saw more families walking up to the community center at the time we had a to-go window. So it was great to engage with obviously members from all over Nashua, but especially in Crown Hill. So that was really encouraging. In total, we distributed over 540 activity kits. Our flagship program, which is our pre-K readiness activity group, went virtual as well. The Riviere Education Club, these students run this program, actually built a virtual interactive classroom for kids. And families picked up their supplies at the beginning of each month and would log on each week to complete the activities. And so through that, we served 32 kids, 60% of whom will be attending a Title I school for kindergarten. We also built and launched a new website, which is asccnashua.com. And this allows for us to receive donations by redirecting users to the city's site, which is then deposited into our trust fund. It's been a great first year, and we've been able to offset some of the costs of programming and to-go kits using these donations. We like to say that community builds community, and whether it's $1 or $100, we're extremely grateful for our community members who volunteer and donate their time and money as well. So with that being said, our budget's fairly straightforward. The only increase that you'll see is I believe a 1.7% increase in salary. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions for the Arlington Street Community Center? Seeing and hearing none. Thank you very much, Megan, for giving us that insight into the budget. And if there are any further questions, they will come in writing at some point. Thank you. All right, the next department is 111, Human Resources, on page 97.
Good evening, Kim Kleiner again. So as you all know, the Administrative Services Division had a reduction of 2 positions, the HR Director and the IT Director. I have to thank all of the Administrative Services staff that have stepped up during this time. We have an amazing group of people that serve the city very well. The Human Resources budget is on page 97. You will see there a reduction in full-time wages as part of that elimination that I just spoke of. You'll also note that we did have an increase in overtime this year. And I'd like to speak just a little to that, as I feel it's important to recognize our payroll team. This year, you had a number of union negotiations, collective bargaining agreements that went past their time. And when that happens, there's an extensive amount of calculations that need to be done to calculate retro payments. This caused our benefits, our payroll team, excuse me, to work an incredible amount of overtime to not only get the payrolls for our city schools, all of our city employees done, but also to calculate the retros for those collective bargaining agreements. At no time did this department leave City Hall. They have been here during COVID, day in and day out, serving all of our employees. We also have an increase in our part-time wages. This is temporary assistance for benefit enrollment. So as you know, right now, we just finished open enrollment. They were due last Friday. And our team has to then calculate and compute, code, and enter all of those open enrollment applications. So during this time, we have hired a past employee temporarily to assist us with that work. You'll see an increase to pension costs, mainly driven by that elimination by the HR director. And then a $10,000 increase in consulting services. That increase in consulting services is for us to continue to work for improvements with HR, benefits and payroll, and our Lawson system. We did welcome the addition of an HRIS analyst this year, and that employee has been phenomenal in helping us work out some of our issues with Lawson in our HRIS system. One example would be our benefits staff would have to input all of our benefit changes into Lawson, the Lawson system, and then also into Anthem, our carrier. This position, working with benefits, helped to develop a feed where that data can be fed from our Lawson system to the carrier, therefore eliminating the need for dual entry. And that those types of things are what we are looking for to drive improvement going forward. You'll also note that there is a line, staffing services, that was added to this year's budget, not included in next year's budget. And I just wanted to take a moment to note what that is. That $10,000 was moved within this year's budget for the city greeter, who is working right outside in our main hallway to greet all of our residents and help them navigate City Hall during the construction. We do not see that position continuing past June 30th. Then there's a small number of deductions throughout the budget. Most of these are either due to trend or due to the elimination of the HR director position. conference and seminars being down 500, employee trainings down 1,000, postage, other contracted services, office supplies 500, that's trend. Forms and supplies 500, that's also trend. So in order to meet the mayor's directive and be fiscally responsible, we looked at where we could possibly save money within the department and made those reductions and feel that we will at no way impact our services.
Set. Any questions? Any aldermen? No questions? All right, thank you, Ms. Kleiner. Next is in Department 113, Employee Benefits on page 98.
Yes, so Kim Kleiner again. The employee benefits line that you see on page 98 is our unemployment compensation. It's interestingly to note this year, you will see that in fiscal 21, there is no actual amount. That is because the city has not received any bills from the state unemployment. We do not know when that will change. We're not expecting any dated back from the COVID-19 pandemic, but at any point we've been told due to the emergency order and what may happen with that, those bills may begin again. So we kept that budget stable and flat. Happy to answer.
Okay. Any questions on benefits?
Yes, I have a question, please.
Alderman Lou?
Thank you. Could you just tell me, like, how does the unemployment compensation work? Is it based on whether we have employees that are collecting unemployment compensation? Is it?
Yes. So our unemployment compensation is generally, there's a number of factors that are taken into consideration. So how long the employee, whether we were the last employer, how long the employee worked for the city, how much was fed into. We did have a number of employees. We did receive notices, although we did not receive bills. Interestingly enough, we also had some employees that we received bills for because there was a security problem with the unemployment system. These employees were not laid off and they were not unemployed. And we had to work with the National Police Department in that situation. And that's an ongoing issue, and I'm sure you've all read about that in the news. But our unemployment system, our HR manager logs into that system and tracks all those bills and handles that system.
Thank you. Just a follow-up, is 85,000 typically what we end up being billed annually, or is that more of a retainer sort of?
Happy to answer that. It was actually around 30,000 the prior year.
Okay.
So I would not say that. I would say that that is high.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All set.
Any other questions? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to Department 128, Risk Management on page 112.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jennifer Deshays and I'm the risk manager.
My budget starts on 112. I'm asking for an overall appropriation request of 4.2 million. With the exception of salaries, fringe benefits, insurance programs and claims, and other expenses, all lines have either been decreased or level funded. 51 and 52 salaries and wages and fringe benefits reflect salary increases and pension expenses for merit and UAW professional employees. We have had no additional positions and are not requesting any for this upcoming fiscal year. 59, insurance programs and claims. This has been the worst market I've experienced in over 25 years. It's been all over the place. It's been very unpredictable. With that being said, I'm going to talk about our insurance renewal policies. Workers' compensation policy. Many of the workers' comp carriers are establishing a minimum premium floor for all their clients. We're seeing increases anywhere between 30 and 50%. This is partly due to an increase in legislative presumptions throughout the country, trends, especially for first responders, such as the PTSD presumption. Law enforcement exposures are more hazardous and unpredictable, as well as a societal uptick in riots and civil unrest. Our general liability policies, based on market forecasts, we anticipate an average of 7 to 10% of an overall increase for our basic general liability. As it relates to our specialty line items, public officials, employee blanket bonds, we're looking at a 10% increase due to the current economic climate and claim trend uptick in the industry. Cyber liability is probably the worst. The market's been all over the place, from 10% increases to 80%. 2 carriers have left the market due to high loss on the public entity side. This is due to claim developments, especially with ransomware. Carriers are driving hard on controls. This should provide us some relief over the rate, because we do have some really good controls in place. Property policies, I'm anticipating a 15 to 30% increase over last year. Some of this is due to improvements, added coverage, but the market's being driven by perils such as hurricanes, windstorms, wildfires. The event in Texas has been the largest insurance event in history, coming in at $18 billion. That was that winter storm with the burst pipes and people, lighting fires to try to keep their pipes from freezing. So right now we're looking into deductible options to help offset the rate amount and the cost benefit of doing so in the marketing alternatives. We've had a very favorable risk control visit just recently, and we're hopeful that these results have positive impacts on our terms and rates. We've started marketing our policies early this year. Not only are we discussing higher deductibles, different carriers, creative exclusions and alternatives, but we're really promoting our efforts as a city as well as our programs. The other part of that area is claims. Claims are budgeted based on trends, history, societal upticks, and actual claim data. Due to the pandemic, we're seeing skewed trends and outcomes. Workers' compensation claims, we're having a good year, but it hasn't been a normal year. A lot of our employees have been working from home. And at the onset of the pandemic, there were multiple changes throughout the city as to how we do business. Because of this, we've seen a decrease in incidents. I do want to point out that this line item reflects in-house bill review and code call negotiation savings that our office performs on a daily basis. Through April of this year, accounting for this fiscal year only, the claim adjusters have negotiated $215,000 in medical bill savings with providers. This is a task that most adjusters at TPAs don't perform. And since inception of this program, we have saved an overall $1.7 million to date in medical billing costs. General liability claims, We had a good year this year, but we've been trending high cost claims in the past few years. And that's what has been taken into consideration when budgeting this line item. Property claims, we're experiencing abnormal high expenditures this year. One reason is that we've had 4 to 5 or 5, I'm not really sure how many, 4 or 5 traffic signal control cabinets hit by a third-party vehicle. These run us up to $20,000 to $30,000 each. The good news is that we should recover through our subrogation process, which is taking into account while budgeting these line items. Another unfortunate added expense this year was the bridge fire. That cost us at the tune of around $218,000. Automobile claims, we didn't have the best year. We had 3 total vehicles, a bus, a police cruiser, and a park and rec pickup truck. And many of the at-fault parties are underinsured or uninsured. Our office has an adjuster who is crazy good at pursuing recovery for uninsured individuals. But unfortunately, although we do recover, the return is slow and sometimes spans out over a few fiscal years. We have a few claims on the books that have yet to be resolved, and that's what you're seeing reflected in this upcoming fiscal year. 68, which is other expenses, loss prevention. You're going to see a slight overall $5,000 increase due to usage. And the safety training and education, an increase of $4,500. Our office manages the CDL program for all our commercial drivers that hold CDLs. The federal government has put in place what's called the clearinghouse, and this line item covers the fees associated with new online tracking systems for the new online tracking system for mandated increase. So at this time, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Are there any questions? Alderman Jettie.
You mentioned losses due to accidents involving the party at fault, the other party at fault being uninsured or underinsured. Do we not have uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage as part of our policies?
Mm-hmm. So for that type of policy, we are self-insured up until $300,000. So no, we don't have underinsured and not insured coverage. Unless the loss is above and beyond that 300,000. And then we do have it, but at that point. But we do pursue these in the courts, and we pursue them to the fullest extent possible. We have payment plans. We take them up to the state, and we take them directly to court.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Risk?
Mr. Chairman. So Alderman Jettie here. Yes, so the other question I had is, I've heard of our, being involved in claims where we've settled cases, and Attorney Bolton said that those settlements didn't come out of his department. Do they come out of your department, and where are they? And if they do, where are they in this budget?
So we budget for that every year based on trends. So in those line items I just spoke about, 59 insurance programs and claims. So when a claim is reported to our office, we set a reserve on the case, and that's where these are budgeted, right here. So all these requests include monies for settlement, sometimes outside attorney fees. It's all included in that claim cost.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jenny? Any other questions?
I have a question, please.
Alderwoman Lou?
Thank you. Mr. Shays, does that exclude abatement settlements?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And there's a separate account for abatement settlements, correct?
I am not sure which department that falls under. It's not mine, though, I can tell you
Okay.
that.
All right.
Alderman
That
Deb.
Alderman Lou?
I think that Director Kleiner is just going to name that and answer that for me. Thank you.
Ms. Kleiner?
Yes, Director Kleiner, any abatement settlement, whether it's a return of principal or interest, comes out of the overlay account, which is handled under the assessing department, as Attorney Bolton spoke to earlier.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Yep.
Any other questions? Ms. Kleiner, did you want something else?
Yes, Alderman Dodd, I just wanted to ensure that we were going to circle back to the benefits self-insurance fund, if the committee would so see fit after Ms. Parkinson reports on the purchasing department.
Okay, back to what?
The benefits self-insurance fund.
Okay.
And I believe Ms. DeShays has city buildings also.
I do.
Okay, so next is Department 129, City Buildings on page 116.
Jennifer DeShays, city buildings. The proposed budget for city buildings is 86,000 less than last year's fiscal budget. 51 salaries and wages and 52 fringe benefits reflects merit and UAW clerical salary increases in pension expenses. We've had no added positions and we're not requesting any for the upcoming fiscal year. 54 property services, you'll see a decrease of 100,600. We're anticipating the sale of Burke Street and removal of 201 Main Street utility expenses have reduced this line item. 61 supplies and materials, a slight increase of 1,500. Maintenance guidelines for the renovated spaces in City Hall has increased the need for inventory. In last 71 equipment, a decrease of 300. We're confident in the condition of our current equipment and tools to carry us through fiscal year 22. And at this time, we'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on city buildings? Alderman Wilshire.
Thank you. Can you give us just a quick overview of where we are with the construction of City Hall?
I'm going to pass that on to Kim Kleiner.
Okay.
Director Kleiner.
Yes, I'd be happy to. So as you know, we have finished 3 major departments assessing motor vehicles and tax. We are now working in the city clerk's office. We expect that to be complete by the end of June. The project is tracking approximately $60,000 over at this point, and we expect no additional major additions to that budget. Most of the materials have been bought and purchased, and there's just a small amount of labor. There's about $153,000 left of charges to come in as we finish that project. Having said that, we've also had a number of smaller projects within City Hall And those have come out of the city building ETF fund. Those have cost of about $65,000. We had some painting at Gilson Road, which the city contributed half to. We had some HVAC upgrades here at City Hall. And then we had some building modifications within the legal department.
Thank you.
All right. We're all set on city buildings. Did you want to circle back to something, Ms. Kleiner? Or are we all set?
Thank you, Chairman Dowd. It's at the committee's pleasure. The self-insurance fund still needs to be spoken about. And that's 6,600, page 99.
Okay.
And I believe Mayor Donches has spoken a lot about this. The benefits team has worked very hard on health insurance costs throughout the city with our consultant, Workplace Benefit Solutions. Managing these costs and bringing reductions to health costs has to be a comprehensive effort. Not only is it the addition of the new HMO plan, but it also requires massive education with our employees. We have the dependent audit, which is taking place. We've made modifications to some of our plans, such as our health savings account. There were issues where employees who had dependents in other states wouldn't switch to our health savings and the high deductible plan because those dependents weren't being covered at the negotiated rates. We worked with our provider and our consultant and redesigned that plan so that those dependents will now be covered at Anthem's national rate. This allows those employees now to be able to switch over to the high deductible plan with the HSA. So it's a number of efforts and a lot of redesign that goes into lowering these costs. I did want to give you, I know last year when we spoke, it was brought up by budget review, the fact of the city doing a dependent audit. We did start that in early March. I'm happy to say that we have had a completion rate of 82% to date, with final notices going out just last Friday. We're doing very well. Those final notices will have a date of June 9th. That equates to approximately 196 employees who haven't responded. So we're going to do a lot of reach out to those employees. To date, we've had 59 dependents that are coming off of the plan due to not meeting applicable eligibility. The company that we're dealing with, Part D Advisors, estimates that each dependent, looking at their book of business, costs the city about $3,500. So right there, without even finishing the audit, those 59 have come off voluntarily. That's over $200,000 in savings. So we'll have more information towards the end of June, but we're very happy with the progress that this has made, that we've made on this effort. And we have to thank the employees of the city of Nashua for participating and going through the exercise, which is very important. You've heard Mayor Donchis speak about the fact that our rates are remaining flat. If there had not been an increase in stop loss, we would have expected that we would have saw a decrease in our rates. So it's good news. We're going to keep on doing different initiatives and trying to navigate these costs, both working with WBS or Workplace Benefit Solutions. To go over just some rough figures, which you can see, our projected medical costs are about $45 million. Projected claims being 41.7. Our estimated pharmacy rebates are $1.25 million. Our stop loss premium, you're seeing a large increase. We did go out to bid for this. We do every year through Workplace Benefit Solutions. Unfortunately, that came in a lot higher. It is through Anthem, and they were the lowest bidder. Unfortunately, it's just not good news for us. We continue to see our claims go up that are high over the $350,000 threshold. So far through the end of March, we had 9 claims that were over, claimants that were over the $350,000 threshold. To date, our stop loss reimbursements are over $942,000. So that's the importance of having this insurance. It is well worth the money that we spend, considering we've seen over $942,000 come in, and we had a premium of $907. So it's why we do it. Unfortunately, though, these claims have continued to rise. We are concerned, both Anthem, Workplace Benefit Solutions, and us, as to what will happen with healthcare costs next year. We know, and Anthem and the medical industry knows, that there were people during the pandemic that had serious conditions that may or may not have received the care that they should have seen. And will we see higher medical costs in fiscal 22 because of that? Many feel we will. So we're keeping an eye on that. The benefits team has been out. We have met with every group at the school district that is currently in negotiations. We want to thank the school district and the school administration for calling us in, and for those negotiating teams for meeting with us. We have been to every group in the city and talked about the health savings account. And we were at DPW and every location last week educating employees. So that's a big part of what we do and how we're going to control our costs. We are also upping the Smart Shopper program. And to date for fiscal 21, We have had gross savings of $146,000 with Smart Shopper. We've paid out about $20,000 in incentives, 234 incentives to be exact, which nets out to a little over $125,000 in savings. We're adding more procedures that will be covered by the Smart Shopper program, and we're educating employees on that as well. The other part of our savings that we're seeing is looking at the individual plan costs and administrative fees and going out and negotiating those. So one that we have for fiscal 22 is that Benefit Wallet will no longer be our health savings account provider. It will be moving to Anthem as of July 1. That will result in a 15-cent per member per month savings. And it also allows our employees to have one-stop shopping. So now, instead of having to log in to Anthem and see their health claims and their bills and things of that sort, then over to Benefit Wallet to manage their health savings account, it will all be within Anthem. They'll be able to see everything, and Anthem will be able to service them on both their claims and their health savings account at once. So we're looking at a number of initiatives. We really hoped that we could see these healthcare costs result in a savings in workers' rates. But unfortunately this year it just didn't happen. We did have 5 unions that switched over to the new HMO plan. And those were the UAW, Clerical, Technical, and Professional, the Library, ASME, and Police Communications. So most of the savings that you are seeing within the individual benefit lines in the departmental budgets result in those employees within these union groups switching to that new HMO plan. And
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions relative to self-insurance? Seeing and hearing none, we're going to move on to the last item this evening, which is Department 130 purchasing on 120. Kelly? It doesn't seem you're on mute, but we can't hear you.
Yeah, you're on mute.
Yeah, we're not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Good evening. Kelly Parkinson, I'm your purchasing manager. And our proposed budget for 2022 is $347,464. That without salaries and benefits, that is down 2.65%. Our salaries are up slightly just because of the UAW increase. Our benefits were up pretty significantly, mostly because my predecessor did not opt into city benefits and I have opted into city benefits. So I'm worth it. I'm costing you more, but I'm worth it. The equipment and repairs, the property services line of my budget is down We did get a new copier this year. Our old copier was at 4.5 million copies. So with a new copier, I would expect our service and equipment repairs to be significantly lower. We also replaced the tires on the purchasing van. So that expense happened in 21. So our repairs should be flat. And I adjusted our postage meter down. It was, I think, set at an old rate because we got a new postage meter, I think, shortly before I came on board. I want to say a year or two. The other services line item is pretty flat. I moved some things around to accommodate cell phones for myself and 2 other employees who do use our phones for work. And I also moved some postage. There was postage meter supplies in the postage and delivery line item. So that was moved into office supplies so that the postage is actually postage and not meter supplies. We won't be going to any conferences or seminars this year. Anything that we do will be online. So I did move those monies into the cellular line item. The other line item that we added this year was shredding. We outsourced shredding for City Hall. And that was $800 for the year. Everything else is pretty flat. So that's my submitted budget.
Thank you. Any questions relative to purchasing? Anyone? Seeing and hearing no one. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
All right, that wraps up the department. The departments we're handling this evening. I need a motion, Alderman O'Brien.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to table R-21-142 by roll call.
Okay. Call the roll.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Wiltshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yea, Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, that's 6 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. New business ordinances.
There are none.
No, we have nothing we're taking off the table. General discussion. Does anyone have anything they want to talk about? Alderman Wiltshire.
Hi, yeah, so future meetings. The budget committee meets again on Monday, correct, Alderman Dowd?
In the chamber.
In the chamber. Okay. Just wanted to bring that up so that people, it's on their radar that Monday we will be going back into the aldermanic chamber.
So we will be social distancing. Members of the public will come in, will be on Zoom. Presenters have their option. Any other members of the Board of Aldermen that want to attend in person will have to sit in the, what I call the pews, the gallery, because we have to do social distancing of the committee. And I'm not sure about, I'm thinking we're probably still going to have masks except when you're speaking. And we will have a little bit of a learning curve. We've been through the system once already, and IT is still working to make sure everything works fine. Every member of the budget committee that's going to attend in person needs to get a card to get into the building. Donna has those. And anyone on the budget committee that's not going to attend in person, please let me know so I know you're on Zoom. I guess that pretty much covers it for now. We may have some more information over the weekend, but we'll be Monday at 7 o'clock. Alderwoman Kelly?
I wanted to know, thank you, Alderman Dowd. I wanted to know about, I don't know who delivered our budget books, but it was very lovely to find it sitting there, and that was great. I wanted to know about, oftentimes we get a binder from the police department and some of the other departments. Are those still coming, and will they be delivered, or we have to come to City Hall to get them?
They are coming. I have talked to several of the department heads already. I have a few more to touch base with. The police and fire were covered, and they will be doing their regular books, and they will be delivered. I don't know exactly how they're going to be delivered yet, but we'll be coordinating with Donna on that one.
Okay, I just wanted to flag that. Thank you.
Any other general discussion? Alderman Jettie?
So if I understood correctly, Mr. Chairman, the members of the Budget Committee have a choice. We don't have to appear in person. If we choose not to, we still have the option of attending by Zoom.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yep. So, any other general discussion? Public comment. Is there anyone that would like to make public comment? Seeing and hearing no one. Remarks by Alderman. Again, I hope to put out some additional guidance on the budget process. I'll reiterate some of the things that I said early on in the meeting. So I think we'll be fine. As I said, it's going to be a learning curve on the first meeting Monday night. So we'll need a little patience from people to make sure we handle the people in person and the people on Zoom. So, okay. So if there's nothing else, Alderman O'Brien?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, did you call for public comment?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I did not hear you. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I would like to be recognized to make a motion to adjourn by roll call.
Motion is to adjourn by roll call. The clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Wiltshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien. Votes yes. Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you have 6 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries and we're adjourned at 9:21 p.m.